Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Camilla's Choice Part 2. Um, as you can see on the screen, you can see our different platforms here. The political consciousness of West Coast Steeler fan just happens to be one of them. But tonight, this is a very special edition because I think that everyone wants to talk about exactly what happened and what's going to happen in our upcoming election. I see three of our panelists are already in, so let's introduce them. Ladies first, of course. Good evening, Natalie. How are you doing this evening?
Good, thank you. I'm doing great.
Glad you could join us this evening.
Thank you for inviting me.
We also have Mr. Bob Heidelberg. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
It's close. It's you got a hill and a berg. Hillberg.
Okay, Hilberg. Okay.
But
Uh,
very good. Nice to meet you and Natalie and be part of this.
Mr. Hilberg gladly committed to coming on the show after listening to our previous show last week. So
Right.
we're definitely looking forward to some contributions from him. And of course, we have my old friend, Vietnam veteran, Mr. Larry Holman. Larry is a retired police officer, former Vietnam veteran. Larry, how are you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm doing good. I just want to correct the record. I was not in law enforcement. In fact, I didn't even pretend to be one. but yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I recovered from some cancer recently, and at least I think I did, and so I'm in pretty good shape right now. I'm really happy to be with all of you this evening.
Yeah, I had my little scare. I think that's something all of us Vietnam vets go through. But yes, so I'm expecting some other people to come in. But in the meantime, let's get our conversation started here. And of course, Natalie, I am going to start with you. What did you think when Joe bowed out of the race and he stepped down, naming Kamala?
I thought, woohoo, thank goodness. I thought it was a chance, a hopeful chance of actually getting somewhere. I think Joe Biden has done a great job. He's hands down, he's just done a great job of pulling both sides together for sure. But representing for the next 4 years, that that's a hard sell. So, but I would have. I mean, I'm a Biden supporter, so I would definitely have supported Biden. But I was relieved. I was very relieved, especially after the debate. That was that was telling. Wouldn't you guys agree? I'm interested in what your opinion is on that.
Well, Bob.
Um, yeah, I'm concerned a little bit about. I know we got two veterans here about where we are in the world, especially with the wars that are going on. Where does that lead us, and what happens with the future of other kind of countries taking a shot at coming after us. I know I got a family of military. I wasn't in the military, but just about everyone in my family was. My son, my father, my uncles, my wife, all that stuff. So we were very disappointed as to what happened in Afghanistan and what's happening in the Ukraine and the Middle East. And we're wondering where that stuff is going and what kind of leadership we need to kind of eliminate that or to calm that down so we're not in wars all the time. So that's a major issue for me. And the economy is the other part of it. So those are things I'll throw out.
Larry.
Well, as far as Biden's, I knew it was going to be Biden's choice as to whether or not he stayed in or got out, and I think I really applaud him for being able to hear what his advisors and people that were approaching him were telling him, and I applaud him for putting the country first over his own political ambitions. That he knew that even if he got reelected, what the chances of him making it through the whole 4 years were slim. But that's why you have a vice president, of course, and the fact that he got behind Kamala right away tells you that he had confidence in her being able to replace him whenever that situation arose. And but winning, in his mind, preventing Donald Trump from being elected, I think he thought was an existential threat for democracy, and he was willing to try to save democracy, our democratic republic, and the Constitution by standing down and letting Kamala go forward. And I think Kamala is eminently qualified. I was encouraged by her speech at the convention, where she said that she was going to make sure that we had a military second to none, and she was going to be strong in terms of dealing with the threats from abroad. Thank you.
Speaking as a veteran, I was more than ecstatic when Joe stepped down. I will admit I was not exactly a big Kamala supporter from her record out here when she was the DA in LA. And I had some concerns. But I think in the days since, they have a lot of them have been addressed. And like Bob, I was also concerned about our military commitment, especially after I had seen the way that we had abandoned some of our allies in some previous administrations, especially when you're talking about the Kurds in Syria and talking about the Afghanistan withdrawal. But when you see countries like China steadily making inroads into Africa, sending balloons across, the South China Sea. You look at what they're doing to our infrastructure, hacking our different apparatuses. I do think that we need to keep a strong military presence. Now, does that mean a Vietnam type presence? Does that mean an Afghanistan type presence? I don't know if technology warrants that anymore. But those are things that I think that will have to be addressed during the coming weeks. And I'm kind of interested in seeing what some of the policies are going to be moving forward. I don't think this is a time for us to be dovish in the world. But I do think that the time of us being the savior for the world is also coming to an end. Um, Now, let's talk a little bit about her running mate, Mr. Walsh, Governor Walsh. And I had hoped that we would have some more people from Minnesota on. Last week, me and Mr. Scott, who's from Minneapolis, we talked a little bit about this, which is the conversation that Bob heard. But I want to, I guess, Larry, being a veteran, I'm going to come to you first here. What did you think about her choice of Mr. Governor Tim Walsh?
Well, I think there were some good choices for her to make. I mean, there was a lot of people that were in the consideration. Any of them would have been a good pick. I think she made a really good pick, though, in the sense that I don't think she's going to be upstaged by him. And at the same time, I think he brings a lot to the table. He's spent quite a while in Congress and as governor, and so he has executive leadership abilities, and he will be important asset to her in some of the decisions she makes. So I think he's going to do a good job for her, and also I think he might have a more global perspective too, in terms of having spent 24 years in the National Guard with a view toward what's happening in the world. He may be able to be a valuable counsel to her in terms of the things to consider regarding our position regarding our adversaries and competitors in the world. I know China is I think it's the BRICS nation they call them, compared with the United States and its allies. BRICS are basically starting to eat our lunch now. Economically, the GDP of the BRICS nations combined are increasing dramatically, and so they're becoming very powerful competitors, and so we have to keep that in mind. I agree with what you said earlier, James, about our role in the world is declining, and we have to figure out how to manage expectations in that circumstance.
I see we're joined by another panelist, Dr. Casey. Dr. Casey, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing today, James, and everybody else?
All right. Dr. Casey is from Atlanta, and she has also joined a lot of my podcasts. Some very controversial, but that's another, that's another topic. Just kind of getting up to speed, Dr. Casey, what did you think about Joe stepping down? I know, we've had a lot of conversations about Mr. Biden.
My stance was just say no to Joe. I think that he has been unfit to serve in the capacity that he has the position for right now for a long time. This isn't something that I feel just started happening. These are long-term effects of things that started showing up when he started falling down the stairs, when he started falling off the bikes, when he started jumbling his words from the teleprompters. So I think that it was time for it. I think that they might be scared to allow her to be president now, but I think that he needs to step down from his role.
Okay. All right. So now, what did you think about her choice for her running mate, Governor Tim Marks? He had some controversial programs set up during COVID-19, but he also set up a school lunch programs for kids. So he does have a great reputation on one end and a rather delicate reputation on the other. What did you think of her choice?
So as a black woman, I felt like she needed to have a white man as her vice president. It was no way around that. Anybody else, and she would have never had the opportunity or chance to win. So the moment that she announced the white man in general, I knew that that was like common sense. Like she couldn't do anything else and have a good chance. So I have been listening to some of his policies, some of the things that he's done. It was quite funny because um, he's from Minnesota, and I know that we used to have a lot of discussions about that area. So that was interesting, but overall, the things that I've heard about him, just from his background, I think that he's well rounded enough to bring something different to the table and even to reach voters that may not have um, been eager to be into the politics games because he's not a politician as much. Especially when you think about him being a school teacher and a coach, that makes him more personable and more down to earth than probably any other candidate.
Bob, what did you think?
I'm quite upset about what he did for Minneapolis and how he really destroyed a really vibrant city block where right now it's a war zone. Right now, all those businesses burnt to the ground. No one wants to go there. There's gangs there. It's just what he did, how he reacted to that, and what is left with Minneapolis just being devastated with what happened. I'm not excited about his leadership skills. I'm not excited about his relationship with China. I mean, that's one of our adversaries, and he's been there 30 times. He got married there. And I'm just concerned about his relationship with China from that point of view, that it could lead us to some devastating probabilities of him maybe aligning with China versus selling our country out. I'm concerned about that.
Natalie. Are you on mute, Natalie?
Sorry about that. I share some concerns about that too. He seems soft to me, and I think he can't be soft. You can't be in that position and be soft. However, I like his character. I like his normalcy. I think he's a hopeful guy. He's not a doomsdayer. I like that. I like the two-state idea for Israel and Palestine. I support that. But I'm also in support of a really strong military, and I'm also extremely concerned about China. And I don't know if his experience will help him know them and know how to, interact with them and see them for what they are. I've had my own experience with China, so I have a strong opinion about it. But China's a danger. It's a danger. I saw a startling amount of Chinese businesses in Guatemala this last year, in Costa Rica. They're buying up property everywhere and setting themselves up. They're all over Mexico. So yeah, it's a big concern. And I just don't know if he's strong enough to handle that. I'm not sure if Kamala is strong enough. I'm hoping that they set up, supports around them that can handle these things and advise. The alternative is even scarier to me. I don't think tariffs are a good idea, so I have to support that I mean, what are our choices really? But those are my concerns as well. And I also come from a military family, and I do want a strong military. So that's my thought on that. I'm still learning him because I didn't know anything about him until he came, in with Kamala. So I'm learning him as we're going. So I'm not sure how much of the true person I'm getting. I have to do more study. But from what I can see, that's how I feel.
Dr. Casey and I did a numerous amount of podcasts from Minneapolis with some of the residents of Minneapolis. And this is also among the concerns of theirs of how he handled that particular situation. Personally, I think that without causing bloodshed at that particular instance, I think he handled it as best as he could. Now, what has happened since, I think is more of the problem of the residents of Minneapolis rather than the governorship. But as I said, I think some of the things that he did as far as education, as far as school lunches, and making sure that teachers were well represented and well paid in his state compared to others. I do commend him on that. And of course, him being a coach also kind of warms my heart a little bit. So I'm probably coming from a little different perspective, but I was glad to see that she picked someone of that character. We have someone else joining us here. Yes, sir. This is another gentleman that had joined us during many of our podcasts. David, how are you doing this evening?
Yep. Sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yep. Sorry. I apologize. Sorry about that.
So, David, kind of catching things up, what did you think about President Biden stepping down and the nomination of Kamala Harris?
It was a smart move by the Democrats. Obviously, we all knew where the election was headed, and it worked out great because it took all the momentum that Trump had off the assassination attempt, and it basically reset the whole campaign. And
No, we lost him.
Yes. Hopefully, he'll be back on. But as you can see, I tried to pick people that were not necessarily agreed with me, but from all different parts of the spectrum here. I see David is back. David, are you back? Can we hear you? Can you hear us?
Geez, I don't know.
We can hear you. Did you want to continue that thought?
yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if it cut out. I was just saying no.
Dave seems to have some technical issues there. But going back to you, Natalie, you said you had some personal experiences with China. Would you like to share those with the panel? Your concerns?
I
I mean, without getting too personal.
Yeah. I've had a few. The most recent and telling was I hosted some Chinese exchange students that were the last group of Chinese exchange students to come before everything was shut down during COVID. and one of them had COVID and was sent to my house. But the interaction between the group was being controlled by the wife of a high power official in China, and the way that the group interacted with her, and I had her child at my house, and there was a lot of dishonesty, and I was told by people that's their culture. You need to just go along with it and not disrespect or question, which, that's not my nature. So that was tricky. One of the young men was of an upper class, and we had a lot of conversations, and one was middle class Chinese and didn't want to be here. And so we had a lot of conversations about what was driving them to be here. But mostly it was about the dishonesty that not one person, but the whole group of 80, so much. It's just not transparent. It wasn't transparent. And I thought, well, maybe it's just that person. Well, maybe it's just this person. Maybe it's just these children. No, I learned over time that this was cultural, and that concerns me. It concerns me a great deal because you can't trust them. I mean, I went with an open mind. My house was open to this program, wide open. But and I would welcome those boys back in my home. I would. But I did put my foot down about the demands that the particular leader was trying to put on me. It was the way it was their value system. It was okay to lie and deceive. It was normal. Matter of fact, the boys lied right to my face and didn't think anything of it. And it was really obvious. It was obvious. I knew that they knew that I knew, but it did not faze them. And that's how they are raised. And also the fact that they didn't have as much respect for me as a woman. That was a little disturbing. So it wasn't just the one child or two children. It was the entire organization. And I learned a lot. And it wasn't my first time either. I had some interactions down in Costa Rica because I confronted this company who they were breaking the law in Costa Rica. It was not my business, but I happened to be on the property of these palm oil farms that were supposed to be protected, but there's not enough power in Costa Rica to run them off. So they buy up this land and do whatever they want to with it, and there's no enforcement. That's just, that's an environmental issue. They just don't care. That's the bottom line. Anyway, that's my interaction. It's been over years long with other situations, but that was the most recent, and that was my final. I'm just not going to open my arms to that anymore, unless it's the two boys. I got close to the two boys, so they can come live with me. But one of them wants to come stay with me while he goes to college here. I would do that, but yeah, that's my interaction. It's a cult. It was learning about their culture, their values, their character. It was interesting. And I got COVID before we even had it over here. I know I did. But part of that was the leaders were like, oh, they're fine. They're not sick. Treat them the way you would treat your child. Well, I would take my child to the hospital. This child's very sick. But they just denied. It was many, many, many issues. But yeah, that's it.
David, are you back with us? I don't think so.
Yeah, is the mic working now, or I'm
yes.
trying to test it out?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, David, we can hear you. Now you're back on now. David?
Yeah, we're lost.
We can hear you. Maybe you can't hear us now.
No. So I have a question. Are we more concerned about communism and socialism, or a threat of democracy? Which is more important to people here?
Larry, you want to take that?
Well, I think to me, the most important thing is the Constitution. Having been in the service for almost 24 years on active duty in the military, I had several occasions when I had to take the oath of office and swear to uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Right.
And so I have a great respect for the Constitution. I want the Constitution to survive. Now, the Constitution is a living document. It is designed to be changed and so that we can move the country forward. When the Constitution was first created, it basically only applied to white Anglo-Saxon Protestant males, landowners. That's the only people that really benefited from what was in the Constitution. And then later on, the various amendments were added. The Bill of Rights got added, and then the rest of the amendments. But it took a long time for each of those amendments. In the most recent Supreme Court decision, some parts of the Constitution were completely ignored in that Supreme Court's decision. So we have internal problems in this country already from people trying to subvert the Constitution. These enemies are not coming from without, they are within. And I'm referring to the oligarchy that owns Congress and many of the people in the executive branch, as well as the Supreme Court. So I fear for the future of the Constitution in this kind of a scenario, irrespective of what happens outside of our borders.
Dr. Casey.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to address Bob's question?
So it'll probably be disappointing to y'all, but I did not vote for president the last election. Although I voted on every other thing, I did not believe in the leadership then, and I cannot say with full confidence that I believe in the leadership now. Either ticket. Although I think that Kamala did a very good job at picking her running mate. I'm just not necessarily impressed with the state of democracy right now as it stands. And there is a lot of fixing up in our country government that needs to be accomplished and addressed. Unfortunately, I am one of the ones who see the value in exposing the government's inadequacies through Trump's first election. Because during the process of him being president, we were able to see a lot of foolishness and a lot of the way the system works and how corrupt it is, seriously, because of the things that were allowed, the things that took place, the things that he got away with. So I think that allowed for a door to be open for us to start addressing issues that need to be addressed. It's just a matter of, are we honestly going to address the issues within our government system? So until we do that, I don't think that we have a real solid democracy in the first place. I think that it is already at stake and amok and hanging on by threads as is. So because I believe that, I am kind of indifferent on what can be saved, because I think that I'm a veteran. I love the country that I served for, but I think that we are in a shithole and we need to really get out of it.
David, are you back? Can you hear us? Natalie.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Bob's question?
Um, about communism versus democracy, I think I'm not worried about communism. I don't. I feel like we're so far away from having that. I'm worried about other communist countries, but not our country being that. I am concerned about our democracy. There's, I mean, it's flawed for sure. There's lots of problems. Um, I don't. I think it's it's one of the. I mean, I live here. It's my favorite country. I love our country. I think the democracy of our country has worked for us uh, better than, say, a lot of other places. Venezuela. I mean, Ecuador. I mean, we can compare ourselves. China. So, are we perfect? No. Do we have problems to solve? Absolutely, for sure. That's my concern: is that we solve our problems. Not concerned about communism.
I would have to say that I think that we have bigger problems than democracy versus communism in this country. Uh, Especially speaking as a black man that's been around a little over 3/4 of a century. So I do see one faction of our country tending to lead us more toward fascism, and I am concerned about that. But I do believe that democracy is something that this country is needed to continuously work on. I don't think that there is a uh, overnight band-aid, but as far I'm with Barbara on this, I haven't found a better country to live in, but we're not perfect. But Bob, why did you raise that question?
Well, I'm very concerned about some of the things that are being said out there on the progressive side. That whether or not it happens, but changing the Supreme Court and packing the Supreme Court. It's worked for 250 years, and we're finding some elite academics that say it's not working for us, so we got to change it.
Bob, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Have we always had the same number of Supreme Court justices?
No, it's changed.
Oh, so why is it wrong for us to change now?
Well, because some of the people out there are not happy with the decisions. I mean, Larry brought up that they subverted the Constitution. These are some of the smartest people in the world, and their job is to protect the Constitution. And Larry saying, "Well, you guys failed in that. You subverted the Constitution." I don't understand that logic at all. And how would someone say that they did that when that's how it's supposed to work? You have a certain amount of people on one side or the other. Elections count, but that's what it's all about. If things happen and you want things to change, then you got to vote the right people in. It just happened that, the woman that died in office, unfortunately, she was 90 years old. There were some things that could have happened under Democratic rule that could have done something and had their opportunity to nominate a Supreme Court justice, but they chose not to, and then it was too late.
Excuse me, Bob, do you remember a certain senator getting up on the floor and blatantly stating that he would not let President Obama put someone on the Supreme Court? Do you recall? I'm just asking if you recall that.
Sure.
Okay. So the subversion did not come from the Democratic Party.
I'm not saying that, but
Okay. Okay.
but Larry brought up something that in the last couple, under the Trump era, that's what happened.
Well, let's ask some of the women.
James, could I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
Okay, let's say, and this is all the liberals on the panel. Let's say the roles were reversed. Let's say Hillary had won. You guys had the majority.
Hold on. We're not debating the last election. We're talking.
No, I'm not talking about the election. I'm talking about the Supreme Court. I'm saying, let's say the roles were reversed and you guys had the majority of the court. Would you guys think it's acceptable if conservatives all of a sudden said, you know what we need to do? We need to add 5 more justices, all of whom are going to be conservative, to balance out the court? Would you accept that?
That is not the conversation, and we're not going to get drawn off our conversation, because the conversation now is presently on this election. But let's go to, since you guys would like to ask that, let's go to the two ladies on the panel. Barbara, excuse me. What did you think about that, Natalie?
I think it's stacked right now. Don't you guys? I mean, to me, it is stacked. So when you said that, I was a little confused. Like, it is stacked. So you're worried about it being stacked the other way. So what's the difference?
No, that's not my question. That's not what I said.
I'm sorry, David. I was referring to Bob.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was stuck on that because it's supposed to be an unbiased court, and it's not. It's clearly not, and it's stacked. And there's a problem. It needs to be fixed.
Why is there a problem? I don't understand.
Well, do you admit that the court is 6-3 conservative?
But what difference does it make? Conservative, progressive, liberal?
Well, how about this? Was it a problem when the left controlled the court for many years, which they did?
Hold on.
Or is it only a problem when the conservatives have a majority? Now, all of a sudden, it's a problem. But when the left has a majority, everything is right in the world, right? That's how it works.
You know what? It's a problem when they're using their bias to make decisions.
How do you know they're using their bias, though? I don't understand. Why is there a bias?
I mean,
we want to go there. Go. Right now, we're going to let Natalie, and then I'm going to go to Dr. Casey, and then I'll come back to Dave and Bob. Go ahead.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we can just go down the list of each one, and I don't think we want to go that direction, do we? Want to list all the biases? I mean,
no. How about just answer? Okay, is it a problem when liberal justices answer things in a liberal way or judge in a liberal decision in their bias, or is it only a problem when conservatives show their bias? Are you against bias across the board, or just towards one side?
Personally, I'm against bias across the board. I think that's
okay.
The whole
fair,
point.
That's fair.
You need to have an unbiased court. Yeah.
But you know that's not possible, obviously, right? That's impossible.
Well, I think when they go out in public and speak about it, and they want to enter church into the situation, and they want to decorate their homes with very biased things, stuff like that. I mean, that's over the top.
Well, I mean, forget about what they do publicly. Let's just read their decision. So, for example, when you had let's say about 3 of the justices have been consistently extremely liberal in almost every decision they make, without question. Do you have any issue with that? Because they're obviously displaying their bias in their decisions based on their ideology. Is that an issue, or is it only an issue when it's someone who has a different political belief than yourself?
I mean,
I think she already answered that, Dave. Natalie, could you go? Excuse me, Dr. Casey. Could you go ahead and express your views?
Well, my first question was to Bob to ask who are the smartest people, because just because people are in positions don't mean that they're the smartest people, even most qualified people to be in those positions. A lot of times they are grandfathered in. A lot of times they are put in position by their reach, their connections, and their network. So I wouldn't necessarily say the smartest people. They just had the ability to get in those positions. In addition to that, I think that it should be an even number of all sides. I don't think that any one side should weigh in more because, of course, they're going to vote their views. I don't care what you think. You can think that they're going to be unbiased, but people are going to go based off of how they view life and how they their belief systems are set up. So if that is the case, then it should be across the board, regardless if it's um 5, 6, 9, whatever the case is, whatever that number is, it should be evenly divided so that you get a real well-rounded um justice. Like we need people that are going to think, but I also believe that the terms of the senators and congressmen need to be limited. I don't think that they should be in their positions for umpteen years and just be able to dictate um how things go based on an old mindset. And I think that Bob was a little optimistic, or giving a little bit more credit than he should when he said that is the system has been working for the last however many 100 years. Has it really?
Well,
uh
obviously it has. We have the greatest country on earth right now. What country is better than America?
okay. I'm gonna let you keep thinking that, but the system has not worked for
Okay, can you name another country? Can you name
Well,
one?
David, first off and foremost, we're not cutting people off on this show. Everybody getting their chance to speak. So when you get your opportunity to speak, you can. Can I name a better country? Well, I live here. I'm a veteran. So yeah, I do love America. But guess what? We could do a whole lot god dang on better. And the system is not good for everybody. It's good for people that don't look like me. Let's just say that.
Really?
Uh,
So again,
yeah, I
are
think
you then conceding that there isn't a better country? Because when I said America's the best, you rolled your eyes
we,
like what I said was ridiculous.
We're not debating whether or not America is the greatest country. It's not. The leadership is not the greatest. So in order for the country to be the greatest, the leadership has to be the greatest. They have to make good decisions for the country. They cannot go and help every other country and leave our country in damnation and in suffering and homelessness and all the other things that go on. And our government can fix and help better, but they don't. So please, David, bring it
Yeah,
down a little bit.
on that
Bring
point,
it
I
down.
agree 100%.
Bring it down.
100% agree with you. But still, can you still
No,
name a
no,
better
it's
country
no
that you'd
but.
rather live
It's
in?
either
There is
it's
no.
either you agree or you don't agree. There is no but. Because when you say
No,
David,
one,
because
it creates all
there's
David,
that.
there's okay.
oh,
How about this? I think the difference is because I judge America against other countries. I don't judge America against an idealistic utopia that will never exist. That's the
David,
Who said
difference.
that?
David,
You're judging America against an impossible standard that
Who
doesn't
said
exist.
that?
David,
Who
we
said
are,
that?
There is
Do you know me? I don't think you know me well.
uh, David, hold on. We are on a particular topic. We are not talking about what place America has. We're talking about what is happening within our country. So, what did you think about what Bob had said in the struggle between democracy and communism?
Well, I mean, I came from a communist country personally, so I've, when I look at what America's headed towards to where it's been, it's obviously the Marxists have a lot of influence in America, especially in the universities, and they've influenced a lot of the young people in America to despise their country, to despise capitalism, to despise our entire system of government, and want to embrace a totally different system that, in the beginning, looks like it's going to be great, because that's how communism works. They entice you with all these programs and they're going to take care of you, but what they don't show you is that it's a hook that's going to drag you into a nightmare, and it's going to drag you into totalitarianism, dictatorships, total suppression and control of the people. And people in America have never experienced that. In America, you have the freedom to say whatever you want. Like all of you on this radio station, none of you are afraid to speak publicly against your government. You have no fear whatsoever. Where I'm from, my entire family got killed simply for objecting to some of the actions that the government was taking. And so people in America don't realize that we could easily slip into a police state
and I'm convinced that the left in America, if given total reign, would 100% do that. And they showed their hand during COVID when they were given the opportunity and the power. You saw how much they clamped down on people and how they wanted to suppress people's views and speech and everything. And so, to me, I see the left as slowly going down that way. But I just the way America's headed right now, I don't think that's even going to be an issue because our economy and our dollar, I think, is going to collapse. So we don't have to worry about 20, 40, 50 years down the road. I think the current system we have right now in itself is not going to maintain that much longer.
So how can it be the greatest if the system is failing that you just mentioned? You just said it was failing, but that don't make sense. How is the dollar not going to survive, but it's the greatest? Like, come on, guy.
I'll give you a simple. As it stands right now, up until this point, America has been the greatest country ever. There's never been a country in the history of mankind that's had more freedom, more economic opportunity than has ever existed before. I mean, the fact that you and I, as racial minorities, actually had a civil rights movement to gain rights is unheard of in most countries. That never happens. In China, as we speak right now, there are several ethnic minorities that are being heavily oppressed, like the Uyghur Muslims, who are being basically put in concentration camps and being harvested. So what we have here in America is a unique experiment that is something that has never been seen before in human history. And the problem for people who are native born in America is they lack that perspective. Now, I'm an immigrant, so I have an outsider's view. So I appreciate the benefits of America, I think, more so than natural born citizens do, because you take these things for granted because you think this is normal. You think it's normal to have this kind of freedom. You think it's normal to speak freely the way you do. You think it's normal to have this kind of economic opportunities that you have here. It's not. And for most people on the planet, it's not the case. And for most people in history, it's not been the case. And so that's why I still maintain that it's the best country. But the economic policies that you guys are implementing are ridiculous. That's why the dollar's going to collapse.
Okay, hold on. Let's hear from Larry here.
I'm thinking that the biggest threat to our democracy and to the Constitution is coming from fascism and not from communism or socialism. I think one of the most important questions asked in the entire Bible, am I my brother's keeper? Now, the answer to that question should be, for most normal empathic people, yes. So if we can't agree that that's the position we should all take with respect to our neighbors and our friends, then we probably got a problem. But I start from that place. That like Hillary wrote the book, It Takes a Village to Raise a Child. Well, it takes all of us to make sure that nobody gets left behind. Right now, we have half of the population of the nation teetering on the edge of poverty or in poverty. That's not right. When we've got 5 people in this country that have $860 billion among them, that kind of thing is going to kill our country.
Bob, I'm going to give you the last word on this. What's your biggest concern?
Well, I think this immigration disaster over the last years we got hundreds of thousands of children that we don't even know where they are, that were just left abandoned. The first few hours of Biden coming across and saying we're not keeping them in cages and just sending them wherever. The 30 or 40 million people that have come across the border, and we don't think that that's a problem because I don't understand that. I mean, you go to Canada and you go into the United States and you try to get back into Canada because you want to go to the bathroom, you got to show your passport, but you come from Venezuela or Iraq or China, and you cross the border in Arizona, and next thing you know, you're on a boat or a bus or a plane, and you're showing up and you're in our backyard now, and there's 22-year-old kids that are going to high school in Lynn, Massachusetts. You think that's a problem, having a 22 or 24-year-old doesn't speak English hanging around 12-year-old and 14-year-old girls? Yes, that's a problem. We're getting the crime is out of control in the major cities. We're seeing most of the hotels in our area are full of migrants. They're kicking the veterans to the street. I think what they're doing to this country is just appalling, and they're not doing anything about it. And it's just flooding the market, and that's going to lead to chaos. And I agree with David that if we don't have someone that has the capacity and the leadership to come in and say, that's enough. You want to come into this country, you do it the legal way. I have friends that it took 10 years for them to get here to get a job. And they're in communist places, but they were architects, and it took them a while to get here. And yet people are showing up, and within a few months, they're getting free health care. They're getting a license. They're getting free home. They're getting everything handed to them, and the veterans are getting kicked to the street. It's disgusting what's happening with that, and that's going to ruin our economy. I know Larry's concerned about the people that have a bunch of money. You know, let's worry about the people that are really flooding our zones and just ruining what is a thriving economy now, but could come crashing down within 6 months or a year or two. And then if we don't do something with that kind of leadership and draining the swamp, I'm all about draining the swamp. There's so much corruption out there. It's all about the money. I agree with that, Larry. Who's going to have the gumption to say, you're out, you're out, you're out. You're fired, you're fired, you're fired. Kamala's not. None of the Democrats are going to do that. Has anyone been fired about anything that happened with Afghanistan? And, look at this FBI disaster and the CIA.
Actually, Bob, someone was fired about the Afghan situation. His name was Trump. But David, as an immigrant, do you feel that we have an immigrant problem?
Yeah, as far as how it's managed. So, for example, whenever you enter America legally, there's a long, extensive vetting process that takes place, and even after once you come to the country, there's more, stuff that goes on to make sure that you're, doing the right thing and that you're able to support yourself. And when you just let people come in unvetted into the country, for every person that's coming in, simply seeking a good life to take care of them and their family, there's also people coming in with evil intent, criminals, drug dealers, gang members, and the FBI has already made it clear. Several terrorist groups have used that as an opportunity to come in and set up sleeper cells in America, which is the main reason why Biden shut down the border. Because, you had the FBI director coming before Congress letting them know that they knew for a fact that several terrorist groups had entered America through the open border. And so regardless of how you feel about the matter, where you are politically, we should all agree that to leave the border open as long as they did is ridiculous. I mean, you can Google right now, how many Chinese nationals have they caught coming across the border? That they've caught, not that they know have come across, that they've actually detained. I believe it's north of 30,000. I mean, does anyone view that as something that's acceptable as far as how we run our country?
Dr. Casey, I see you chopping at the bit here. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that he said it was the greatest country, but it sure sounds like it's a lot of issues for the greatest country. That was it. But what I was thinking though is that it's kind of crazy to think that because David, you come from a worse place, or because that worse places exist, that the people that's born in America can't want better for themselves. That is crazy as I don't know what, because we have a right to want more. We have a right to want better. We have a right to want a system that actually covers, protects, leads, and does all the things that all people need, not just the immigrants, not just the Caucasian people, not just the young white man, or like the people that they want to cater to, but that a system that really nurtures everybody to become their best selves. But just because other places are worse does not mean that we can't want more or push for better.
As long as the better that you're advocating for is not communism. Because, and I think this is what Larry was getting at. The thing about what I notice that the leftists in America oftentimes do is they often bring up the top 1% that have all this money and so forth. And what they fail to acknowledge, and I'm sure Larry being a historian, he knows what happened in the Soviet Union and in almost every other communist country in the world is whenever they come into power, all they do is they replace that wealthy elite with a new governing elite. And all of a sudden you have a government ruling class that takes hold of all the nation's wealth, all the power. And so you just replace one group of elite for another. And all the idealistic, Marxists that wanted to have this great system that takes care of everybody, just like Trotsky wanted to in the Soviet Union, they get replaced by Stalin and a bunch of other cutthroat people like him who get all the idealistic people out of the way. And they set up a system where they have all the power, all the money, and anyone who questions them gets killed. And so you have to choose what you ultimately want. If you want the government to take care of you and to essentially be a state that supplies all your needs, there's strings attached with that. And you're going to have to accept there's certain trades you're going to have to make. And so you're going to have to say, well, I'm willing to be taken care of and I'm willing to surrender these number of rights to get that. But most Americans are not being honest. And I think the political left in America is not willing to be honest and tell them the truth and say, hey, if you want universal health care, everyone's going to have to chip in. Not just, it's not going to be the corporate, corporations and the top 1% that are going to subsidize this stuff. We're all going to have to chip in through our taxes, through our payroll, your paycheck. You're going to have a significant amount of money taken out. And they don't tell them that. And I think Americans are being sold a dream that just cannot happen. And when you look at other countries in Europe, for example, that have more socialist models, they have high tax rates. People making $60,000 a year pay north of 38, sometimes 45% income tax. Now, are people in America willing to do that? Because there's a different mindset of Europe. In Europe, people have mindsets of we're all contributing, we're all going to kick in, we're all going to do this together. But the political left in America is trying to sell this dream where, oh no, you're not going to have to chip in. Only the wealthy and elite are going to do so. That's just not true. And so, if the left in America could be honest and straight with people and tell them that, I think people would lose support for the left because most people are not willing to, they don't want to pay a significant chunk of their paycheck go to pay for healthcare. They're not willing to see a significant increase on income tax on people making less than $100,000 a year. They're not willing to have that. So if people on the left could be straight with people, then I would accept it, but they're not. They're being dishonest, and that's why I don't respect their position.
Natalie?
So many thoughts. First, the greatest country in the world. I mean, that's too broad. We're a superpower, but we don't insure all of our people. We have all of our mental health institutes closed pretty much publicly. Like how? So I think you have to take what issue. Do we have freedom? Yeah, that's the greatest. I love it. Do we have opportunity? Sure. Do we have the ability to change ourselves? Absolutely. And that's great. But why are we having veterans begging on the corner, homeless? Like we're not taking care of our people. So that's not great. France, they have a better medical system than we do. So I think you have to take individual issues. I'm actually really moderate. I'm in the middle. Politically, I'm an independent. And it's issue by issue. You can't say we're the greatest. Are we? I mean, we're great, but globally maybe, but anyway, so that's my thought on that. Are you, do you want somebody who fires everybody? I want somebody who can grow, who can have people from the beginning to the end and trust them and pick the right people to begin with and not fire them because they piss you off or do something, against what your beliefs. I don't think it's good to fire and start anew. That's not stable. That's very unstable government. So there's that. I mean, I could go on and on, but those are my thoughts. Was there?
Well, I'm a coach, so I understand if you're given responsibilities and expectations and you got guidelines and boundaries and you don't do your job, Nice knowing you. See you later. I
Sure.
mean, we thought you had the credentials to do the job. We brought you in. You look good, but then you are not doing the job. You're not showing up. You're not accountable. You're not transparent. Move on. I got to replace it. So, a football team starts with 90 people. They narrow it down to 53. People are going through that right now. They try to find the best of the best. And 2 weeks from now, they're going to have 10 more guys that come in that are better. I'm always looking to find better people. If Natalie, you're doing a great job, but then I find Larry does it better than you. And, some of the things that I thought you were going to get done, you didn't get done. You gave it your best, but Larry's better. All right, Larry, step in and do your job. I'm all about elevating the whole team. And if some people have to sacrifice because they didn't do their job or didn't meet their expectations or not transparent and accountable, next. Elevate the whole team and be the best and set with the best team. So if you're upset about firing people, I'm not about that at all. If it's not about ego, and it's not about, oh, I don't like you, it's like you didn't do your job. I mean, I would have fired half the people in Biden's because they didn't do the job. They're incompetent and they're over their head, and it's like, oh my God, what some of the things that haven't been done that should have been done and mistakes were made. Next, bring someone in that knows how to do that job, because I'm disgusted with what's going on with crime. I'm disgusted with what's going on with the economy, inflation, transportation. I mean, there's so many things that are out there that this administration has really failed middle America. And never mind the energy process of the superpower that we have with having gas at $2 a gallon instead of $4 a gallon, and like David said, you can be taxed to death. Great,
David,
are you willing to give up things to get what you want? I don't know.
Can I ask you this question, Dave? Why are you mad at gas being $3 or $4 a gallon, but you're not mad about the gas corporations making record profits?
Right.
That to me.
Who says it's record profits? Then it's not record profits.
That's what your stock market says. That's what gas prices says, and that's what their quarterly report says.
So they're price gouging. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Doesn't happen in the free market.
Along with Kroger's, which is why your foodstuffs are so high. Are you telling me that the same toilet paper that I paid 9 cents a sheet for, now I have to pay $1.25 a sheet for?
And that's because of price gouging and profits?
It's not just price gouging. You have to take into consideration a lot of other things that are happening. For example, because I work in logistics, so the cost of shipped goods around America right now are extremely high, and a large part due to the cost of fuel. But then after the pandemic, there were a lot of issues with the supply chains around the world, which caused sort of a domino effect on costs across the board. So it's bigger than just, the price gouging that people try to point to, but part of it has to do with the fact that energy costs are super high. And when Biden and the Democrats came into power, one of the things they made clear was they were going to raise the prices of energy as a means to deter people from using that.
Remember I put down fact checking here, so
you can look it up.
So it's fossil fuels.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm referring to the congressional testimony of the head of the EPA. She gave it. This was like, I think this is early in Biden's term. This is like within a couple months of him coming in office. And they were questioning her about, some of their policies, decisions. And she made it clear that they felt like the raising of the cost of fossil fuels was as a means to deter people from using it, encouraging people to use more electric and to switch from, say, gas vehicles to electric cars. And so the left, because they view climate change as such a pressing issue, in many ways they feel justified in raising the prices of energy as a means to get people to start using it and to switch to other forms of energy. Now, in the short term, it has a hugely negative effect on a lot of people, especially the poor. But in their minds, climate change is more important. And so this has to do with the people that are running the country right now. They view their certain ideological views as more important than the everyday plight of working class people. And that's something that the left, which used to be working class, is now what I call the elites of New York and L.A. and D.C. And they appeal to these people that are mostly upper middle class, upper class liberals who don't deal with the everyday costs of working class people. And so for them, they say, hey, what's wrong with raising gas prices if it gets people to stop using, having less carbon emissions? Because for them, it doesn't hurt them the way it does the poor in this country. And so it's just a viewpoint.
Natalie, I think I consider you and I among the working poor. What's your opinion on that?
Well, yes, probably I would consider myself that. However, I do get an oil royalty check from my ancestors. It's about maybe 5 years ago, it was $25 every quarter, and now it's $75 every quarter. So I get this little sheet about their profit. They've never gone down in profit. The fuel companies have always been increasing their profit every single year. I think they want you to think they're suffering, but they're not. I'm getting a check to prove it. So I know this, and I read their reports. So I don't know where that comes from. I also want to just say I'm not opposed to firing people, but I am opposed to firing 4 or 5 press secretaries because they won't say things that are untrue for you. I'm opposed to that. But I'm not opposed to firing people who aren't doing their job. No, I do think that I'm an environmentalist, but electricity uses fuel too. That's fake information to not think you're not using fuel for that. And we have enough fuel in this country for this country, but we're exporting because we can make more money on that. So, there's a whole thing going on there about the percentage we're allowed to export and not export, and that controls a lot of that. And it's just more complicated than just saying they're trying to raise our fuel prices. Plus, nobody's saying they're going, California gets to pay twice as much as the rest of the country in fuel. I mean, that's, nobody's doing that. That's fake information. And I'm also not opposed to having more taxes to take care of our people. I'm for that. I'm a capitalist, but we can pay more taxes to take care of our people. We're a wealthy country, even though people don't think we are. And like you said, James, I consider myself maybe part of the working poor. I'm not homeless, so there are working homeless people all over the place in California. So I'm not that poor. I have a roof over my head, But yeah, so I'm still for paying more taxes to take care of our people. And I don't think that's communist. I think it's community. It's connection and community. And that's what we need to do.
But how much more?
I don't think we need to pay 80% taxes, but realistically, we can pay some more taxes.
Well, why don't
Yeah,
you?
but for what? For example, how much? How much would be the yearly cost for universal health care in America? Just off top.
Let me ask you this, David. Do you think that being a superpower, we shouldn't be having universal health care? I mean, why are we the only ones without that?
Yeah.
Well,
And I'm for universal health care and the option of going private if you have the money and you want to do that. I'm for that. I'm not for 100%. You have to use government because that's a disaster, right? To just use government medical, that would never be okay with me. But we have to have it available for people. Don't you think? We shouldn't be taking care of our people?
Dr. Casey, what do you think here? Let's get your views in here.
I didn't come prepared to talk about universal health care. that wasn't supposed to be the topic of discussion. So I think that the ticket that is up for this next election is going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see how things go from here on out, to kind of watch everything play out, regardless of where you stand with the left or the right. It's all the same damn bird, okay? I mean, like, it's not really a difference, you know. But I mean, if you want to live in the reality that you think there's a difference between the left and the right, then by all means go ahead, brother. I'm not even gonna fuss with you today.
Larry.
Wow.
Okay, I've been working in healthcare a large part of my life, and we have some executives who make millions of dollars from other people's health situations, and I am also retired from the military, so I get socialized medicine because I served in the military. I have health care for life, and I think that that's something that should be available to every human being. Now, some people say, well, wait a minute. You earned it because you served in the service. If they wanted free health care, they should have gone in the service. Well, okay. But I just think that nobody should have to suffer. The other thing is what we're spending now per capita on healthcare in this country would go down significantly if it became a universal healthcare. Of course, a lot of those millionaires, billionaires that are making money off the system, they would no longer be a part of the system. But the cost of delivering the care would go way down. We could save a lot of money in this country by having universal health care.
I disagree. I was in the healthcare industry for 30 years, and some of the people I know worked for the claims department for the people that are in the government. So people in the Pentagon and all the congressmen and senators, and her job was to come in and make sure that 90% or 95% of the claims that come in get processed correctly. It wasn't at that time, so they brought her in. She was an expert. Can you kind of guess what the percentage was that the government was doing correctly of claims? Just give me a number between, let's say, 0 and 100. What would you guess that their percentage of correct claims of percentage for the people that are in the government?
I'm sure that Dr. Casey and I would agree that it's under 5%.
No, it's about 25 to 30% of the claims that come in were processed correctly. That means 70% of the claims were either double paid, or they were fraudulent, or there were mistakes. And that's dealing with just the government in Washington, D.C. So this person that I know, she worked for the major insurance companies. And her department were in the 90 to 95% accuracy, and they brought her in, and she was there a year and a half, and they said, we're never even going to get close to 50%. The people that are doing this don't care. We don't care that we double pay. It's the government's money. And she got so frustrated that she had to leave. They gave her a bonus and everything, and she's like, I can't do this. The culture is so corrupt. The people just didn't want to do the work. They weren't coachable. The upper management said, sorry, if we get the 45%, we're happy with that. And the private side, 90 to 95% was being done. So you're going to lose innovation. You're going to lose a lot of money to fraud. There are hospitals up here in the Northeast that were double billing everyone that was on Medicare for years. And then someone found out and blew the whistle, and they had to shut the hospital down because that's what they did. They knew that the government was going to pay it.
Well, we're not saying, as
universal health care is not going to work. You're going to lose the innovation. You're going to get a tremendous amount of fraud, and you're not going to have the efficiency that you have now. And anyone in Canada, and if you're dying in Canada, they're saying, sorry, you didn't make the list. You're going to have a government person decide whether or not you live or die. And I don't want the government touching my life at all because it's so corrupt and it's so incompetent. I'd rather have someone out there on the capitalist society where there's back and forth. There's competition, and if you do a better job, I'm coming to you. If you do a lousy job, I'm leaving you. If I got a doctor that doesn't know what he's doing, I'm getting a new doctor. If I got a hospital that doesn't know what it's doing, I'm going to another hospital. I can't do that with universal health care because the government's saying this is where you got to go and this is the doctor you have to have.
I'm kind of with David on this because I think this is the fear mongering that's pushed by the right. But I won't. I'm supposed to be pretty impartial here. So what I'm going to do is let everyone get their final thoughts in. And David, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you give us your final thoughts for the evening?
Yeah, just on that point on universal health care, for those who want to look into it, the state of California and the state of Vermont try to see if they could do it in their own states. When they ran the numbers, they saw that it was more than their entire state budget by a significant margin. And so if you try to have it nationally in America, people have run the numbers on that, it'd be more than the entire federal budget by, I think, an extra $1 trillion. So it's a fantasy dream that's not going to happen because as much as you want to convince the American people that you could do it by taxing a small percentage of people, it's not true. You would have to tax everyone. There'd be a significant tax increase, and the entire country would be livid because the one thing Americans don't put up with is increasing taxes. Just they're not going to accept it. So on the point on the election, I just want to say, for those who are happy with the way the country is currently being ran, vote for Kamala Harris. So that's what you're doing because we all know Biden is not doing anything. The man doesn't even know where he is right now, barely knows his left hand from his right. So by default, that means Kamala Harris has been the president for the last 3 years. And this, all we've witnessed with the handling of this country has been under their control. And look what they've done to America. And so if people in America are going to say, because I don't like Trump, I'm going to vote for this person that I like, despite the fact that her policies are terrible and they're running our country into the ground, then we deserve to have Kamala Harris as president. That's just I just don't know the way to put it, but if America can't see the choice here as far as policy wise, and they're just getting caught up in personality, then what's the point of even having our country anymore? You know, so that's all I got to say.
Dr. Casey,
I'm kind of curious about what policies Trump got that we need to put in place, but that's neither here nor there. So in general, when it comes to the ticket and moving forward, like I told y'all, right now, I am not really excited about either ticket. The last time I voted for everything but a president because I didn't believe in Biden. I already knew everything that was fumbled was going to be fumbled. I'm sure there are plenty of episodes of shows with James where I spoke on that topic. Now, whether or not Kamala will be great, who knows? that is something that is yet to be seen. I definitely don't think that she's running anything right now, despite Biden's health, because they have other people in place that handles like a puppeteer. That is how the government works. He has handlers. He has things that he wanted done when he was able-minded, and they are going to put those things in place. I think that I definitely still think that he should step down completely and let her take over. But the truth of the matter is the president isn't really in control. They are just the CEO and the face of the company that we know as the United States of America.
Thank you as always, Dr. Casey. Thank you, David, for your last words. Larry, your final thoughts for the evening.
Well, I'm kind of looking forward to see what happens. I think in terms of the strengths that I see in this new ticket is the preservation of the Constitution, maintaining freedom. And I extend that idea of freedom to the freedom that women should have over their own bodies and decisions that they have to make about their families and so forth. I think equal opportunity, unions, the middle class. I think these things are going to be enhanced and supported by this administration. The one thing I'm concerned about with this incoming administration, assuming that this ticket's going to win, is that they're not progressive enough. And I think climate change is a legitimate concern. I think anybody that talks to anybody that knows anything about climate change will find out that we have to solve this climate problem within the next 10 years, or we will be past the tipping point, and it'll be a lost cause. And all of humanity will be lost, as well as many other species on the planet.
That's hilarious.
Excuse me, I didn't laugh when you were talking.
Sorry. It's funny.
Well, you may believe it's funny. I take it seriously. And so I think climate change, there are two existential threats as far as humanity is concerned: climate change and nuclear holocaust. We have to get rid of the nuclear weapons, and we have to stop the emissions of fossil fuels into the environment. And those are my final thoughts. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you, Larry. Bob, your final thoughts. And I promise you, nobody will laugh while you're giving them.
Well, I apologize, Larry, but that was hilarious. That climate change is a major factor because we got 8 billion people in the world, and 4 or 5 billion people are living on less than $15,000 a year in U.S. dollars. So you're not going to change climate change because half the world needs fossil fuel to survive. There's billions of people that don't even have running water or electricity. And you think, a 350 million little country here in America is going to lead the world in climate change. We're doing like 0.0001% of the climate change. They're polluting like crazy in India and China and different parts of the world, and they are not going to do a thing about what we're doing. So look at Canada and the fires up there. They don't care about all that stuff polluting the air. They just let it run rampant. So the incompetence of these other countries and not dealing with climate change, I mean, that's just a joke to me. People have been saying we had climate warming and climate cooling in the 70s and 80s. The world's going to end in 10 years. This world is billions of years old. It's not going to change in 10 years. That we're going to have 3 feet of water and we're all going to be underwater, and Miami's going to be underwater. That's just hysterical to me. The thing that I see, and I'm with David, is that you guys have January 6th and you have the freedom of the Roe versus Wade. Those are your two arguments of why you don't like Trump. I like Trump because he's a leader. He stands for this country. He is going to make decisions that are going to elevate. Why would a guy that's worth billions of dollars step up and get abused every single day? I mean, I know he's got a huge ego. He's got planes, that stuff. He doesn't care about money. He could just go away and just make all the money he wants. He's being indicted for no reason. He's getting, all this kind of stuff. Are you kidding me? Would you do that? If you had $5 billion or $10 or $30 billion, would you run for president and get attacked by 30 or 40 or 50 million people on a daily basis and your family? No, I like the guy because he stands up and says, I'm not taking this. And if we don't have someone like that to stand up for America against China, against the corrupt that goes on in the Washington, D.C. and drain the swamp, then we're going to be Venezuela. We're going to be a communist country, and good luck. We're going to be 70% taxes. They want to tax things that are unearned gains. Are you kidding me? That's going to crash the stock market. No one is going to have any incentive to do anything, and we're all going to be mediocre, and we're all going to get fat, and we're all going to die in our 50s and 60s because nobody's going to care about anything. I'm all about responsibility, and I don't want the government touching anything to do with me because I believe they're corrupt and they're incompetent, and I don't trust them. So I want someone that's a business person, that's a leader, and knows how to get the job done. And if you don't do it, you're fired. Next, bring up the next person. That's where I stand.
Natalie.
I'm with Larry. I definitely think the environment's important. I think as a leading country in the world, we need to lead and not lower our bar to the standard of the countries that are polluting. We need to raise our bar so that people can reach it. So I'm about respecting. I'm hopeful. I feel a lot more hopeful this week than I did a few weeks ago. Kamala is not. She was not my favorite in California, but the alternative is worse in my opinion. And I think she will represent us with dignity, and she'll represent a lot more of us. Um, you know, so I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful if she. I'm hoping she wins, but is there going to be problems? Yes. I don't think either side is going to be perfect. I definitely think she will be more perfect. She'll be closer to that. Um, yeah. I mean, that's why we have checks and balances in this country. And actually she's the face, the representative of our country. It's Congress really we need to be concerned about, right? And our Supreme Court. So she represents our country with respect and dignity. And that's what I want. Yeah. And I think the reason why Donald Trump would do it is for power and ego. I think it's also for money, but yeah, his character is just, I don't want him representing me because of his character and because of his ego and his decisions. And I don't believe in his policy. I think they're only, for his class of people. He's not looking out for us. So that's how I feel.
Well, I would like to thank everyone for their time tonight. It kind of seemed like things worked out. I had both sides represented, and I think that's what the show is all about. So I would invite anyone to come back anytime I have a show, and we can discuss things. We didn't let it get too out of hand. Dr. Casey and I have been a part of some programs that were humdingers, but like I said, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time tonight to come out and talk with us. Dave, sorry you missed some of your football game there, but hey, thank you everyone, and appreciate your time. Look forward to talking to you all again. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Do, 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 do.